by the American Library Association and an organization called FINRA. And I'll let Dr. Rauderkus tell you a little bit more about FINRA, but it's the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. And they have put together these programs for libraries to offer all across the country. And we are one of 20 libraries in the U.S. running this program right now. And the only other library in Alabama is Pelham in Shelby County. So our program is really meant to remind our patrons and the public that the library is a safe place for unbiased information. So Dr. Rauderkus does not work for Merrill Lynch or Regions or any other fine financial establishment. He is completely independent. He's just here to educate you. He's not going to sell you anything, and the library, of course, is not going to sell you anything. So that's the main point of the grant. I do want to let you know, before you leave tonight, I hope that you will stop by and register if you haven't done so already, and I'll give you a brochure and some more information if you have questions. Also, when you get home, or maybe this weekend, if you have some time, go to our website, and it's listed on the brochure, and I believe it's also on your notepad, so you can't forget it. Go to our website. We have a Smart Investing section. You can see all of the programs we have planned. You can register there. You'll see links to important resources online. And we will also have the video of this program on the website, and any handouts that go with it will be available there. So, if you lose something you take home tonight, you will be able to get it later. Lastly, a big part of this grant is collection development. So we are updating our collection in financial and in personal finance and investing. But I did want to let you know, as you leave tonight, we've got a whole cart of books right outside the door specifically on personal finance and investing. So if you're excited and energized when you leave, which I know you will be because we saw this at staff day and it was great. You can grab some of those books as you leave and go home and really, make it your weekend. Get your budget, track your spending. It'll be great. I'm going to hand the stage, so to speak, over to Dr. Rauderkus. He is a professor of accounting and finance at UAB, and he is going to be with us all year to lead us through this process. Dr. Rauderkus.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Katie. Well, good evening. I hope everybody can hear me. Thank you so much for coming. It's very nice to see so many people actually coming and listening to these programs. Personal finance is a very important topic. It's one of my pet peeves that people don't know enough about their own finances, and a lot of the things that we read about and a lot of troubles that people get into is because of that. FINRA, just to explain that, Financial Industry Regulation, is a combination of the NASD, which was the National Association of Securities Dealers, and the New York Stock Exchange, that through their regulatory authorities together, they regulate the investment industry. So in other words, if you're talking to a financial advisor, for example, or when you call your broker, if you have one, they have licenses, and these licenses come from FINRA. Now, if these brokers or these financial companies do something that they're not supposed to be doing, they get fined. And FINRA then uses those fines to pay for programs like this. That's what they're for. That's what they're for. That's the only use of those fines. When you hear somebody getting fined, $10 million, then FINRA does $10 million to put into those educational programs. That's the purpose of the FINRA Foundation. So that's what they're doing, and what they want to do is invest in education. They want to make sure that investors do not get taken in by people that are up to no good. And we will talk about that too, how you protect yourself from that, not tonight, but that's going to be one of the topics that we have during the year, is how do I protect myself from people that are trying to scam me. We're going to talk about all aspects of investing and saving. So what are the different products out there? We're going to have a whole session on bonds. We have one on stock. We're going to have one on mutual funds. We're going to just talk about the financial markets in general. How does that whole thing work? Then we're also going to talk about banks. That's actually going to be our next regularly scheduled session. First Thursday in November is going to be about banks. And we're going to talk about, for example, what everybody hears about right now is those debit card fees the account fees that everybody's being charged now, and if or if you not have to pay those, and so on and so forth, and how you can avoid them, all those kind of things. But that's, I tell you all that, so you know what's going to come up next, so hopefully you come back. But what we want to talk about tonight is budgets and budgeting. Because at the end of the day, if I don't have any money to save or to invest, then really everything else I'm going to talk about doesn't really matter. If I just have enough money to cover my spending, then I don't have anything left at the end of the month. If I don't even have that, then I have a real problem. And that's what we want to talk about. First thing, as Katie already mentioned, but I have to put this disclaimer out here, because if I were an investor or a broker-dealer, I would have to be licensed. I'm not licensed by FINRA, so just to let you know that, I am just a professor. I teach personal finance at UAB. I teach it to students with very interesting results, to say the least. But I mean, it's a finance. It's literally Finance 101. That's what it's called. It is Finance 101. It's personal finance. I teach that very regularly. So I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do in terms of investments. So I'm not going to tell you buy stock XYZ and do not buy stock ABC. Not going to happen. I don't give, and people come to me all the time. Do you have advice? Do you have advice? I do not have advice. I always tell them, if I knew something good, I wouldn't be standing here. I would be enjoying the fruits of my labor somewhere in the Bahamas. So I don't have any of that information. You always have to do your own research when you're investing, when you're looking for financial instruments. You have to do your own due diligence. You should never let anybody else do that for you. You always need to make sure that you understand what it is that you buy and that you invest your money in. And we will hopefully, by the end of this whole series, we are able to tell you enough that you have a much better understanding of what all is out there and what you have to look for. Not every instrument is suitable for everybody. So what are the objectives tonight? Well, we want to talk about what is a financial goal and how do we reach this goal by looking at what our daily spending habits are, then develop a personal spending plan by estimating our monthly incomes and expenses, and if we have a way to increase or decrease our spending, increase our income, and then look at some budgeting tools that help us along the way. Let's start with the financial goals. Everybody should have a goal. When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to savings, when it comes to investing, there's got to be a goal. You don't just sit down and say, well, I got an extra $10, let's just put it aside. Because you don't know what you put it aside for, then you don't know exactly where to put it. And so you need to have a goal. And there are different kinds of goals that you're gonna look at. So there are different time horizons. But those goals have to be realistic. So don't set a goal, well, I want to have $20 million this year, and you're making $25,000 a year in salary. That's not a realistic goal. You know that goal is not going to be reached. So it's got to be a realistic goal, and it has to be specific. If you just say, well, I want to save enough money so that I can go on vacation next year, it's not a specific goal. You have to say, I need to save, let's say, $2,000 so that I can go on vacation next year. That is a specific goal. If I just say, I just want to go on vacation next year, I have all kinds of excuses why I'm not putting any money in there. Oh, I think I can do it on $100, or I can do it on $200. That's not a goal. You've got to set a goal and say, that's what I want to do. Because if I know that, if I know I need $2,000 next May or June, then I can set up a plan on how I'm going to get there. And that's the time frame. I need to know when I want. Is it next May? Do I have a goal 5 years from now? Do I have a goal 40 years from now? I do have to have a time frame so I can plan for it. Very, very important. And then think about how much you want and what you're going to do to get there. Also very important. Now, set milestones. If you have a goal that's 30 years out, you want to have some milestones. Okay, 30 years from now, I want to retire, let's say, comfortably. Whatever that means something different to everybody. The one thing is, if you have enough time, if you're just starting out in your working life, Everybody can be a millionaire. That's one of the things that I always say, and I used to do a program on retirement planning. It's called How to Be a Millionaire. Because everybody can be a millionaire. It's just a matter of putting money aside into the right investments over a period of time and sticking to the plan. If I just do something, put something aside today and then the next 2 years I really don't have it, or I'd rather spend it on something else, I'm not going to get there. But if I stick to my plan, as hard as that is sometimes, I will get there. It is possible. Everybody can be a millionaire by the time they retire, without having to rely on Social Security or anything like that. Just from own personal savings. And set milestones. So if I want to be a millionaire when I'm 65, I want to have a certain amount of money when I'm 30, when I'm 40, when I'm 50, so I know that I'm on track. Very important. Time horizons, the different kind of goals that I have, and I need to set the time horizon because every goal requires a different course of action. Again, the short-term goal, I want to go on vacation next May. That's a short-term goal. If I want to put money aside, I want to have $2,000 to go on vacation next summer, I'm not going to put that money in something very risky. I'm not going to put that in the stock market. That would not be a good idea. If you had put money in the stock market at the beginning of the quarter, meaning the second quarter, the third quarter, you would have lost 25% of your money in that, on average, in the third quarter. That would not do very well for your goal, because it's probably not going to be able to recover that quickly. You want to put your money somewhere where it is fairly safe. It generates a small return, but it needs to be safe so that you actually have it. If I need $2,000 next May or next June, I can't take any chances, because all of a sudden I might only have 1,000 because the market turned against me. I don't want that to happen. I don't have time to recover for that. So anything that happens within the next year is a short-term goal, needs a different kind of strategy. Intermediate-term goals. There might be, I'm saving for my children's education. In 5 to 10 years, I want to buy a house in 5 years. I want to buy a new car in a couple of years or 3 years. Those are the kind of goals that I'm setting in intermediate term. They also require certain investments. You can take a little bit more risk because you have a little bit more time. And then you have the long term, way out, retirement being one of them. I want to retire in 40 years, then I can take a lot more risks. Now, obviously, what is a long-term goal today is not a long-term goal anymore 30 years from now. So I'm going to also have to change and adjust my goals over time. I cannot apply the same strategy and say, okay, today my long-term goal is to save for retirement in 40 years. Now, 20 years from now, that's only 20 years away. I'm going to have to change my strategy. And I'm going to have to change of where I actually put the extra money that I have. Always something happens. There's always something. Nothing ever goes the way you expect it to go. Best laid plans never works. So you're going to have to be aware of that. Something might happen. You might be trying to save for that summer vacation next year, and then 3 months from now, your car breaks down and you have to have a major repair. That's an unexpected event that might throw a wrench into your plans. Now, one of the things that you can do is to put a cushion so that, okay, I need $2,000 to go on vacation, but I better save $2,500. So if something happens, I have an extra $500 cushion for some unexpected expenses that might come along the way. There are personal things that happen to you. You might have retirement plans, and at some point during your professional life, you lose your job for 6 months or a year. Now, that happens. Then you're going to have to adjust your plan. Economic situations. You're thinking about a certain return. Now, one of the things that we see right now is that interest rates are really low. Now, that is great if you want to borrow money. That is not so good if you're investing it. If you're investing for your retirement right now, if you're planning on retiring, you're going to, let's say 30 years right now, you're going to have to put more money aside for that to reach the same goal than you would have had 2 years ago, because interest rates are low. That's the one thing that the other side of the equation. Low interest rates are great, when you borrow. They're not so good when you actually invest. So you're gonna have to be aware of that. Governmental, there might be changes in tax laws that affect you. Everybody who does an investment, makes an investment decision, long term or short term, intermediate term, has to look at their tax situation. The two things that if you ever talk to a financial advisor, the two things that this financial advisor should ask you the very first time you meet with him or her is, what are your objectives? Those are your goals. And second, what's your tax situation? Because everybody's tax situation is different, and there are different investments for different tax strategies or different tax brackets. It's very important that somebody that you ask for advice asks you that question. Because if you're in a high tax bracket, your investment choices are very different than if you do not pay any taxes at all. Now there are different things to look at. So nothing ever works out the way you planned, and you're going to have to be aware of that. You have to be flexible enough to say, okay, I'm going to adjust my plan. It's not about, oh, I tried this, it didn't work, so let's just stop it, it's not worth it. No, you're just going to adjust your plan and you keep going. Now, let's go to the budget part. Because in order to actually have money left over, we first need to have an idea of what kind of money do we have. Where are we? Where are we in terms of our spending? So we do a budget. Now it sounds easy enough. It sounds easy enough. Unfortunately, not a lot of people do it. And having a budget and living that budget is completely independent of how much money you make. Just to give you an idea, a statistic that always amazes me is that about 2/3 of all professional athletes are bankrupt about 5 years after they stop playing. 2/3 of them are bankrupt because they're spending. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you have $1 million, you find a way to spend $1 million. If you have $10 million, you're going to find a way to spend $10 million. So you have to live within your means. If you have great means, that's wonderful. But you're still going to have to live within your means. Everybody needs a budget, regardless of income. So you need to know how much money do you make, how much money do you spend. How much money do you spend daily? One of the things, and I'll mention that again a little bit later, is just a daily spending log. Just as an exercise. Everybody just do it for 1 week. Write down all the things that you buy on a day during the week. Now all these little things, like you pick up a cup of coffee on the way to work. Think little things like that. Or you go to the gas station and if you don't pay at the pump, but you pay inside, maybe you pick up something at the checkout counter there. You pick up a soda or pick up a candy bar, whatever it is. Write that all down and add it up just over 1 week, and you'd be amazed how much money you spend on this. And then if you go to Starbucks every day and you buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks for $5. You do that every day. And if it's just during the week, so Monday through Friday, that's $25. That's $25 a week. That's $100 a month. That's $1,200 a year spent on coffee. Now, it doesn't sound like that when you just put $5 to them when you buy the coffee. But if you know how much coffee you can buy in the store for $1,200? And you can probably hire somebody to make the coffee for you for that matter. And it's just these things add up, and they add up very quickly. It's just that when you go to the grocery store, you need to have a list. If you have actually a grocery list, you're going to be spending a lot less on groceries than when you just go in and you walk to the house and just pick up whatever you see. That's a very bad strategy when it comes to living within a budget. Everything needs a plan. If you have a plan, you'll never run into any trouble. If you have a budget that works, and if you stick to your budget, you're going to live a much happier life than when you have to think about, oh, can I afford this now? How much money do I have left? Can I actually still go to the grocery store? Can I afford now to go out shopping and buy myself some shoes or some clothes or whatever? I don't know if I don't have a budget. And then I might just do it, and then I might not be able to pay for it, so I put in a credit card, and then it all happens. That's where it all starts. And then it gets worse from there, very quickly. So if you're spending too much, find ways to decrease your spending. If you think you need to have more income, you might find a way to increase your income. Get another job, get a second job, whatever it is. Create a monthly budget, very important. Let's start with the income. Now, obviously, all of us that are salaried employees know that what it says when we get paid and what we actually get paid is two very different things. Now, if I'm self-employed, it's different. But if I'm salaried, no, it's still, you still don't get what you still don't get to keep what you get paid, but it's your responsibility to take care of it. But if you're a salaried employee, you're going to get taxes taken out of your paycheck. So taxes is the big thing. There's a whole bunch of deductions that come out of your paycheck. If you're a salaried employee, you fill out a W-4 form. The W-4 form will specify the tax withholdings. You need to fill that out. If you do not fill it out, you will overpay on your taxes. Now, for some people, that is a great thing, because that's the only way that they know how to save. That do not have the discipline to put money aside themselves every month, so they're just happy that there are more taxes taken out than there should. And then when tax time comes, they turn in their tax returns, and they're going to get a big check from the IRS. That is wonderful. It is the most inefficient way of saving money ever. Plus, you're giving the government an interest rate-free loan. That's what you effectively do. If you overpay on your taxes, you're giving the government free money. Very rarely does the government give you free money. So then why would you give it? As a matter of fact, if you're late on your taxes, they're going to fine you and they're going to charge you interest. But it doesn't work that way the other way around. So the best strategy is actually to not get any money back on your tax return. If you get zero money back, that's when you're actually there where you're supposed to be, because that means you did not overpay on your taxes. At the same time, you did not underpay, so you don't get in trouble. So you want to have that refund check to be as small as it possibly can. But I totally understand that for a lot of people, it is a good way to save money, because that's money they never get to see. It's ripped out of their hands before they can ever spend it. And that way, it's a way to go on that vacation this summer, because I just take the refund check that I get from the IRS. That a lot of people do that. And I do understand it, so I'm not saying, that it's a bad thing, but there are more efficient ways to do this. It's just, it depends on what's best for you. This is what a W-4 form looks like. Can you put in the deductions? It's very self-explanatory. And it takes out just as much taxes as you actually should be paying. Then you have to pay Social Security. Also Medicare. Now there is an employees and an employers portion of that. Now the Social Security, also known as payroll taxes, is money that's taken out. At this moment, it's 4.2%. It's normally 6.2%. This year, you got a 2% cut in the employees' portion of Social Security. Now, if that's going to continue depends on if they can agree on that in Washington or not. There is a proposal on the table. I don't know if it's going to pass or not. We'll have to see. But right now, it's 4.2%. Employers still pay 6.2%, but the employee only pays 4.2% right now. So that means that at the beginning of the year, effectively, everybody got a 2% raise. At least for this year, because you're paying 2% less to Social Security. Now it's capped on the $106,800 of your income. Now, the median income in the U.S. is somewhere around $65,000. So, which means that median means that it's right in the middle. Half of the working population makes less, and half of them make more. So, 106,800, not too many people are actually going to go above that. That's maybe 10, 15, 20% of the population actually going to go above that. Now, this is household, this is not household income, that is individual income on your individual paycheck. So if there are two people in your household and each one makes $55,000, and that actually takes you over that 106, that doesn't do anything for you. It is per paycheck. So it goes up to 106,800, which means that the most that you have to pay in Social Security is $4,485.60. That is for this year, right now. It is just for this year that the payroll tax was cut to 4.2%. It might, as of this moment right now, it will go back up to 6.2% on January 1st, unless something changes. You also have to pay Medicare tax. That's another 1.45% that comes out of your paycheck. These are the things that the federal government takes from you. And everybody has to pay the same regardless of where you live. Now, your state government might take money out of your paycheck. The state of Alabama does. There's a state income tax in Alabama. The city in which you live, if you work in Birmingham, they're going to take money out of your paycheck. Jefferson County is not allowed to do it anymore, so they're not doing it as of this moment, but they did until last year. So they take money out of your paycheck. These are all other taxes that you have to pay. Now, if you live in some other state, if you live in Florida, for example, there is no state income tax. So they wouldn't take any money out of your paycheck, but believe me, they get the money someplace else. So they just don't get it through income tax. So there you don't have the state taxes. But in the state of Alabama, you pay state income tax, you pay tax if you work in the city of Birmingham. I do not know if that is true for some of the other cities around here. That I don't know, but I do know in Birmingham that you have to pay city tax, and then you have to pay, you used to have to pay occupational tax, what they call it in Jefferson County, which you do not have to pay right now. We'll see what happened to that. So then, everybody gets a paycheck, and you see all these different deductions. What also might come out of your paycheck is any kind of insurance that you might have, health insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, all kinds of other deductions that are being straight taken out of your paycheck, as well as retirement contributions that go into a employer-sponsored retirement plan, your 401k plan, whatever it might be. Again, not talking about retirement today, but there is retirement money taken out. That is all taken out before you actually pay taxes. The retirement money, your health insurance money, all of that is taken out before you pay taxes. These are all tax-deductible expenses. So they're taking them out before, and they do not charge you taxes on that. They charge you taxes on the income after all these deductions are taken out. Now, as I mentioned, track your daily spending habits. Every day, just for a week. Because once you do that, you kind of get an idea of what you want to do. Then you want to think about, look at your spending in different categories. And these are kind of like recommended ranges for housing, household expenses. 10% of your money should be put aside before you do anything else. At a minimum, 10% should be set aside. So when you get your paycheck, you think about, okay, I'm making $30,000 a year, $3,000 I should be setting aside. As a general rule. Should not even enter my budget. The way it is, it's not supposed to be like, okay, I'm just going to see how much income is there, how many expenses I have, and if I have something left over, well, then that's what I'm going to save. That's not how this works. The first thing is I need to put some money aside to save, because otherwise I'm never going to save. Well, it's going to be very difficult. I'm going to have to put the savings out first. Then hopefully I still have some money left over after all that and my monthly expenses, so I can put even more money aside. But I should start with at least 10%. Everybody should have an emergency fund. At a minimum, it should be $1,000. Ideally, it would be 3 months' worth of expenses. So you look at it, how much do I spend every month on mortgages or rent and all these other expenses that I have, and I should set aside 3 months, because if something happens to me, if I lose my job, for example, and I'm out of work, I at least know that for the next 3 months I do have enough money to get through this. And I can take and I sit back and I can look for a job that I want. Now, sometimes this is easier said than done. This right now we're in a difficult economy, and it takes some people a lot longer than 3 months to actually find a job. But generally speaking, in a regular economy, we're not going to be in this economy forever. This is going to pass at some point. It's going to be easier to find jobs, but you need to have some emergency, because otherwise you're going to be in trouble very, very quickly, and that makes a bad situation even worse. Otherwise, if you have something negative happen to you, but you know, well, at least for the next 3 months I'm covered, you're going to sleep a lot better at night if you know that you have that. And that's really one of the things that you want to do first, is make sure that you have an emergency fund. And once you have that, and that can be, in some sort of savings vehicle. It shouldn't just be sitting there as cash somewhere. You can invest that in something so it actually generates some interest for you. It just needs to be in a way that you can get to it very quickly. But you can put that away and invest that too, fairly safe, so that you always have it. Look at your housing expenses, household expenses. Do not exceed these numbers. You're not going to be happy. Like, if you buy a house you cannot afford. Very tempting. As my wife always makes me watch HGTV. And it's kind of like the trade-off to the football. So, okay, you work 1,000, you have to watch HGTV with me. But every time they go, they say, we have this budget for this house. There's this one show that's on like all the time. It's kind of like the Law and Order of HGTV. There's like, what's it, House Hunters or whatever it's called. And they always have a budget. We have $200,000 budget. Almost every time they buy something that's above budget. And what that means is that, okay, I figured out I can afford a $200,000 house. Now I'm buying a $250,000 house, which means that I'm going to have to pay more for it than what I can actually afford. Which means that about 6 months from now, I'm going to hate that house. Because I feel like all I do all day long is work to pay for that house. It is extremely tempting to do these things. Because, oh, I really like this house. I find a way to make it work. You're going to hate it. I promise you that you will hate that house. And depending on what market you're in, you're not going to be able to sell it. So you're going to hate it even more. And it's one of those expenses. Once you have it and you commit to that, you're stuck with it for a while, at least. And that's why you have to be very, very cautious about that. You have to make sure that if I can afford a $200,000 house, I should not buy a $250,000 house. As much as I would like it, what you can do is that, okay, now I can afford a $200,000 house. Maybe 10 years from now I can afford a $250,000 house, and then I can buy that house. It amazes me when I first, you might have figured by that strange accent of mine that I'm not originally from here. When I first came to the US, I'm originally from Germany. One of the things that always ran on television were commercials by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which were companies that were buying mortgages from the banks so that everybody could have a mortgage. And what the commercials were all about, well, we can't spend. One was, I think, somebody had like a chain around the refrigerator. Or we can't buy this, we can't buy that because we need to save for a house. And then all of a sudden these commercials all went away. And nobody was saving for the house anymore. They just all got it 100% financed. And that's a bad thing. That is a very bad thing. And that's why you need to put the money aside, at least some of it. And there was a time when in the US, about 2005, 2006, they had a negative savings rate in the United States, which means that on average, everybody spent more than they had. That's what negative savings rate means, that I'm spending more than I have, that everybody on average was living on credit in 2006. That's not a good thing. Hopefully, at the end of this whole series, nobody in here will do that anymore, if you do it now, or ever even think about that. We've already seen it that savings rates have increased tremendously since 2008, so people are learning a lesson. Is there anything good about this recession? It teaches people that they need to save, that they need to put money aside for bad times, that it can actually happen. And so that's a good thing. Now, so you want to budget within these. So your housing expenses really should not exceed 30% of your spending. If you're thinking about mortgage and insurance and interest So principal, interest, and insurance. So the payment that actually goes to your mortgage company, if it includes escrow, so also property tax, all of that should not exceed 30% of your monthly check. If it does, then you're overspending. Or in other words, you're going to have to take out of these other items a little bit. I mean, they add up to 100%. So if you are at housing expenses of 40, then somewhere else you're going to have to cut out. You're going to have to, and that's why I said you're going to hate the house if that means you have to eat ramen noodles or bologna sandwiches every day. You know, you're going to hate the house. You have the nicest house, but you know you're eating ramen noodles every night. You know? And it's a matter of choice for some people. Maybe I want a nice house and I'm fine with ramen noodles. That's okay. But for most of us, it's probably not going to make this a very, very unpleasant experience. So it's very important to stay within certain ranges. When we're talking about houses, you shouldn't exceed 2.5, at the max 3 times your annual salary as far as the price that you're paying for the house is concerned. These things change a little bit based on interest rates on your mortgages. Right now, mortgage rates are at an historic low. Historic means they've never been lower since we actually record them, which has only been since the late 60s. So there might have been lower rates some other time, but we only have official records of mortgage rates since the late 60s, and they've never been any lower. So right now, you actually can afford more house than you could have 5 years ago when interest rates were higher. And if you can lock in a low rate of 4.5% for 30 years, that's a great thing. That is a wonderful thing. Because the taxes and the interest is also tax deductible. So depending on your tax rate, you might be looking at an effective interest rate of like 3.5%. That is a great thing. That is a great rate to finance a house at this point right now, if you can get it. So find out where your money goes, and this is all in your. These are just some numerical examples. I'm going to go right through these. Look at your expenses. What are your fixed expenses? And they do not change from month to month. The car payments, your car insurance, rent, mortgage payments, these are all fixed expenses. Then you have your variable expenses. They might change. I put on here utilities, for example. Now, the one nice thing that utility companies do, they offer you what's called budget billing. Budget billing does not mean, oh, I can't afford my bill and they're going to do something special. That's not what that is. A lot of people believe that's what that is and they do not sign up for it. Budget billing just means that they charge you the same amount every month. Based on your last 12 months of usage, they're going to calculate how much you should pay every month so that you cover your annual expenses. So 1 month you might pay more than your actual bill says. Some months you're going to pay less than what your actual bill says. But what you are going to do, you're going to pay the same amount every month. What that means is you know for sure for your budget, okay, every month I'm going to have to pay $200 to Alabama Power. I do know that if it's January, if it's July, if it's December, it doesn't matter, it's $200. That is a great budgeting tool because now I know that's the expense. Sometimes I might have a surplus in my accounting. I will show you sometimes I have a shortage. The shortage is not a problem. They're going to charge you interest. It's only a problem if you discontinue service and move someplace else because then you actually have to pay them what you owe them, obviously. But they will tell you, you can sign up for that. You can all do that on their website. And they will give you a monthly amount. Alabama Power does it. Alagasco does it. You know, their budget billing is not quite as good. They seem to change that. Look at my budget billing. It changes like every 3 months. So they're not quite as good at forecasting. The Alabama Power is really good. I've been paying the same electricity bill every month for the last 3 years, which is great. So I know exactly how much it's going to be. And that's really, really helpful because those are the kind of expenses where you think, how much am I going to pay for electricity? How long did I run the air conditioning? Can I even still run it, or should I just turn it off? Or, same with the heat, or, did I take too many showers? Or whatever it is, do I run the water 10 minutes before I get in the shower? Whatever it might be, how does it affect my bill? Actually, the water company does not budget billing, by the way, I'm afraid. But, which is interesting because I've lived in a whole lot of different places. Some water companies allow you, they only bill you every 3 months, or they bill you every 6 months. Now, in Birmingham, you get a bill every month on your water, and it is incredibly high too, for other reasons. So especially the sewer part of it is extremely high, and it's not just in Jefferson County. I live in Shelby. It's just as high. We just don't talk about it so much. But it's just as high. Not quite as high as Jefferson County, but I've never lived anywhere where I pay more in sewer than in water, and that's basically the situation in Jefferson and in Shelby County. So you have those kind of expenses that do change, and so you're going to have to forecast them. If there are expenses, there are bills that you have to pay. So you're going to have some idea of what there are, because once you have them all, you list your income and expenses. Obviously, your net income needs to exceed your expenses. Now, at the end of your handout, there is a budget sheet. That's a printout of an Excel spreadsheet. That link or that file is going to be put on the website tomorrow, so you can download that. It's a fully set up spreadsheet. It's not from me. It's from a different company, but I've actually used it. It's really nice. So it calculates everything for you. All you have to do is put the numbers in, and it's going to do all the rest for you. It's an active spreadsheet that you can use, and it's free, and it helps you budgeting. So that spreadsheet, just like it is, just a printout of what it looks like, you can download it. It's an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't want to download, you can just use that copy and just get a general idea of how to do your budget. Now, you look at your income and your expenses. Obviously, your income should exceed your expenses. If you do not, you're going to have to go back. I'm giving this kind of an assignment in my Finance 101 class, and I had a student come back to me in the summer and said, sorry, I have more expenses than enough income. There's nothing I can do about that. and turned the assignment in like that. I said, well, this is great, but that's not going to work. Somehow you have to understand that if you're spending more than you have, that's not a sustainable state. There is some problems that you're going to run into in the long run if you do that. If you're spending more than you have, you're going to have to cut back. And there are ways to do it. There's lots of ways you can save money on just basic things like turning off the lights, turning on the fan instead of having the air conditioning running at 70 degrees or whatever. Going to the grocery store with a list and coupons, and buy one get one free items and all those kind of things. I'm quite the nerd that way, but I do look at, and there's some websites, like one is southernsavers.com, where they actually give you the Publix or all these different flyers, and they're telling you what the coupons are with links. You can click on that, you can print them out, or you get them out of the things in the paper on Sunday, and you cut them out. And sometimes there are items between the sale and the coupon, they're actually free. Like mostly things like toothpaste and soap and things like that, but still, you actually end up getting a free tube of toothpaste. It's $2 saved. It all adds up. And so there is ways. On average, I save about 40% when I go to the grocery store. Don't need to go to the Costco's and the Sam's of the world, because unless you have a really large household, you do not need 10 64-ounce bottles of ketchup, because 9 of those you're going to throw away. And at the same time, you're paying, I don't know what the fee is, $50 fee a year or something to actually be allowed to shop there in the first place. So there are certain items that you can buy in bulk here, but to be honest with you, if you just cut out some coupons and you wait for the sales at a regular store, you're going to get about the same price for them without having to. And those are items, when they come out and they're on sale, you have the coupon, you just buy them right then. Now you plan your purchases, you plan your food, whatever it is around the sales. You can do that, you can save a lot of money. That's what you need to do. Everybody has different circumstances. Maybe you have enough income that you don't have to watch that. But at the same time, if you do, then you're going to have even more money left at the end of the month that you can spend on something else. So you need to go back and revise your budget until you have a positive net income, or at least break even. But trust me, your life is going to be so much happier if you have a positive net income at the end of that exercise. Because then you do not live literally from paycheck to paycheck. You do not want to do that. if you have trouble paying your bills, you're going to have to prioritize. Prioritize. Which ones are the most important ones? First of all, I turn my blind eye doesn't work. In other words, and I've seen people and I've heard people tell me that they say, well, I got this bill, I didn't ever open the envelope and threw it away. That way, if I didn't see it, then they can't charge me. Well, it doesn't work that way. You know, just because you throw the bill away doesn't mean you have to pay it. So it's very important that you're actually aware of the bills that you have to pay, and if you have trouble paying them, you can prioritize. Pay your rent and your mortgage first, because you do not want to get kicked out of your apartment or get kicked out of your house. And then pay your necessary expenses next. You're going to have to think about what are the things that I really need. And that's really what it all comes down to in budgeting anyway. What are my needs versus my wants? Buying a cup of coffee at Starbucks every day is a want, that's not a need. If you need coffee, you can make it at home, you know, and take it with you. That's a want, that's a luxury. If you can afford it, that's great. But it's something that you don't need. So you say, well, I need to spend some money, I need to revise my budget. Those are kind of things that I can cut out. All my wants I can cut out. I cannot cut out my needs. I need to pay my electricity bill, I need to pay my water bill, I need to pay my gas bill. Because there are, my telephone bill, because there are real consequences to not paying those. Which means no light, no heat, no water. Now that's not a good thing. So that's something you have to think about. Now if you have trouble with your mortgage, if you carry a credit card balance, talk to the creditor. Don't just stop paying. That is the worst thing you can ever do, is stop paying. Call them and let them know, well, I cannot make the payment. Can we work something out? Because they will work something out. The fact of the matter is, for example, a mortgage company does not like foreclosures. They do not like bankruptcy. Those are not things that a bank or a creditor of any way, or a bank or lender ever likes. Because if a property goes into foreclosure, they're getting about 30 cents on the dollar. And it's a huge legal process. It takes a whole lot of time. It's different from state to state, but in some states you cannot come to the borrower for the difference. For example, there are sort of non-recourse states. Texas would be one of them, where if you owe $100,000 on the home, but you can only sell it for $50,000, they cannot come after you for the other $50,000. In a state like Texas, they can in Alabama, unfortunately, but they cannot, unfortunately for anybody who is in that situation, and they can in Florida too, by the way. They just have to wait 2 years. So when you least expect it, the bank is going to come. So in other words, you haven't heard from them for 2 years, and then they're going to come because they're going to have to wait 2 years. That's a legal waiting period. They have to, by law, and their laws, they're different from state to state. Then they come for the difference. So, but they don't like that. They don't like to have properties. Banks do not want to have properties. They will work with you. As much as a bad rap they all get these days, they will work with you because it's in their best interest. They might not necessarily have your best interest in mind. Some of them do, but they certainly have their best interest in mind. And their best interest is that you pay the bill. And if you don't pay it today, they'd rather have you pay tomorrow than have to ask a judge to take the money from you. That is how banks operate, how lenders operate. They don't want to go through this whole process. They only lose, and everybody loses. When it comes to bankruptcy, when it comes to foreclosures, everybody loses. There are no winners in this process. So you call them and you work it out, and they will work it out. The credit card companies are going to work it out, and the mortgage companies are going to work it out. Now, if you do this 2, 3, 4, 5 times, every time you work it out, and then 3 months later you say, well, now after you worked it out, I still can't do it. At some point, they're not going to work it out with you anymore. But initially, they will try to work it out. They're always the same if you get a charge on your, somebody tried to make your payment is a day late. At least the first and the second time, you just call them and say, well, there was a mistake here or there, they will take the late fee off. If it happens 3, 4, 5 times, they won't. But if it happens once or twice, they will do it. Don't just accept, just say, well, I forgot, even if you didn't. You know, if they're, well, you're actually a day late or 2 days late because you couldn't, you know, for whatever reason, you couldn't afford for that check to clear at that point. You had to wait those 2 days. You can still call them. It's the first time they will take the late fee off. And they will not, credit card companies are not going to jack up your interest rate to 30%. But they will if you do not react and if that happens again. It's very important. They will work with you. There's no, this whole thing about there's nothing I can do. I'm all by myself. They all want to go up. They don't like me. They hate me. They want my house. Trust me, they might not like you, but they do not want your house. That is absolutely for sure. If they like you or not, I don't know. But they do not want your house. They have no use for your house whatsoever. And that's very important. Now, if it's something like a car, they're going to come and repossess the car. That's a different, they don't want to do that either, because they cannot sell it for what it's worth. Cars are even worse, because the moment you finance a car, the moment you drive off the lot, the loan is underwater. You know, if the car is financed at 100% or close to it, the moment you drive that car off the lot, you owe more than what the car is worth. That's just the truth of a car loan. Now that's why when people trade in their cars before the loan is paid off, all of a sudden they have to pay some extra because there is a remaining balance on that car loan, which is going to be rolled over in the new car loan. So all of a sudden, if you keep doing this, your car loan balance is going to continually increase every time you get a new car. That's why you really should not trade in your car until it's actually paid off. You know, otherwise you just, unless you can refinance it, you get 0% or something, then there's nothing better than a 0% loan. If somebody is willing to give you money for free, then do it. That's what a 0% loan is, because even if you have the money, you could take that money and you invest it. And you might not get much, you're going to get it more than zero. So, and you pocket the difference. So it makes perfect sense to get into debt if it's cheap. If it's cheaper than what you can invest the money in. If you can invest your money at 5% and you have a mortgage that carries, let's say, 3.5%, it makes no sense for you to pay off that mortgage early. You take that money and you invest it at 5% because you make an extra 1.5% if you do that. Same with any kind of debt. If you put it in your retirement account, these 1.5% extra going to make a world of a difference over 20 and 30 years. If it's only 2, 3, 4, 5 years, not necessarily. It's a mathematical problem. It's an exercise where you find your cutoff point. But it's not always true that you shouldn't have any debt. It really depends on how much you pay for that debt and what your other options are. And some debt, like mortgage debt, right now, you can't beat the rates. And if you have, then you can write off the taxes on the tax interest. How long that's going to stay? There have been discussions about cutting that whole deduction out for mortgage interest, but we're not there yet. So right now, mortgage interest is fully tax deductible. So therefore, you're actually paying less than what it says on your mortgage bill. Okay. Now, last thing is create a personal financial statement, a statement of net worth, which is kind of like a personal balance sheet. Well, all you do is you write down all your assets and all your liabilities, and then you take the difference between the two. See, okay, what do I owe? Like my accounts, my checking account, savings account, the cash value of life insurances I have on my investments, any real estate that I have, the value of my home, the value of my car, any kind of jewelry, any kind of art, anything that I own has a value. I can look at, okay, if I have put money in a retirement plan, what do I expect to get from that? And then you can say, okay, when I retire, I expect to get this amount of money. And then you do have to make an assumption on how long you're actually going to live. Because you say, okay, when I'm 65, I'm going to get that amount of money, and I'm entitled to this pay, like Social Security. I'm getting this Social Security check when I'm 65, and I think I'm going to live another 40 years. So that means I'm going to get that for 40 more years. or 40 times 12. Every month for the next 40 years. That is an asset. So I get that. Now, that asset might be at some point being cut or taken away. We'll see that. We don't know. But other, like if you have it in a 401k plan or you have it in an annuity or something that is at some point is going to pay you out, and that's your money that nobody can take away from you, that's an asset to you. And you want to put that down. On the other side, you have all your liabilities. All your loans, your mortgages, your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card debt, consumer loans that you might have, any kind of tax liabilities that you have. If you're self-employed, you're not paying taxes every month, you're paying taxes every quarter. So you actually have tax liabilities that you have to look at. And you're just going to look at how much do I have in assets, how much do I owe. You want to have a positive net worth. A negative net worth is not sustainable over a long period of time. Now, the one thing that is very difficult to budget in there is your own human capital, as we call it in finance, which is, if you're still working, your earning potential. How much are you worth? What is your value? That's very difficult, but obviously if you have a job, you have an income, there's a value to that too. That is an asset. But it's very difficult to value. But you could put that in there with the same logic. If I make $3,000 every month, then if I assume that I keep that for the next 30 years, then that's the value. That's the value of me. That's the asset that I am by working. And that's something that I also want to put on this statement of net worth. Just to get an idea of where I stand. Do I owe more than I have in assets? If that's the case, you are going to have to make some changes. Not immediately. It's not something that we say, oh goodness, I have to immediately get out of this. Sometimes, for example, we might have a mortgage on a home, and a lot of people have that, especially who live in Florida and Arizona and California, where I have a mortgage on a house, and then the house all of a sudden lost 30-40% of its value. They have negative net worth in that house, negative equity. That's going to have a negative impact on my personal balance sheet. It does not have a negative impact on my cash flows. So just because your house loses value, that does not impede your ability to pay your mortgage. You losing your job impedes your ability to pay your mortgage. The value of your home declining just makes you wonder, why am I paying a $300,000 mortgage on a house that's only worth $100,000? That's a different story. But unless there is some negative economic event, personal economic event that makes it impossible for you to make the payment, there's no reason for you to stop making the payments. You just might want to find some way to rectify the situation, which is going to be very difficult. If your mortgage is underwater, you're stuck, pretty much. You are stuck because you can't sell the home, or when you sell the home, it's what we call a short sale, so you get less for it than what you owe on it. And the bank is going to have to decide who you sell it to, and you have to actually talk to the bank about it, so you're not your own master anymore when it comes to selling your property if it's not worth anymore what you owe on it. That's not as much of a problem here in Birmingham or in Alabama, but again, if you live out in Florida, if you live in Arizona, in Nevada, in California, if you live up in Michigan, if you live in New York, in New Jersey, huge problem over there because the prices were so inflated, and then they all came down. Okay, that's all I have for you now. Are there any questions? I know. Yes.
You said that getting a tax refund is a cool way to say,
Yes.
but it's done.
Yes.
Do you recommend not paying any income tax until January 1st?
No, I'm not saying because you are required to pay income tax. What I'm saying is that you should make sure that when you fill out your W-4 form, that you fill it out so that, and you can, kind of play with it, and your tax software will actually help you with that, what your deduction should be, so that your employer does not take out more in taxes than what you actually owe. And that way, when you make a tax return, and that includes all your deductions that you still have in terms of home, and that you can write off and all those, that then you do not owe anything on your taxes, and you also do not get a refund. No, you still have to pay your taxes. Don't get me wrong. It's not about never pay your taxes or just wait your taxes until the last minute. Because the IRS doesn't like that. And if you owe money, then they're going to make you pay taxes or make you have to forecast your income and you're going to have to actually pay taxes on a quarterly basis and things like that. You don't want any of that to happen to you. You just want to make sure that you don't pay more than you have to. But you also have to make sure that you don't pay less than you have to. Because the IRS, they don't have a very great sense of humor when it comes to you not paying your taxes. And if you're self-employed, if you're a business owner, they have even a lesser sense of humor, and they will shut you down very quickly. There's a lot of small businesses that fail because of not paying their taxes, or self-employed people that do not pay their taxes because they don't think about it, they're not really sure what they're supposed to do, and they don't have a sense of humor at all when it comes to tax collection. Any other questions?
The W-4 that you're talking about, get it through your employer?
Yes.
You started that first of the year?
Well, it's you get it when you seek employment. They're going to give you one. Now, if you say you want to change it, and you go to your employer and say, "I want to change my W-4 form," you can do that at any point in time. And the moment you change it, then they will adjust the amount of taxes that they take out. So
should you do it at the first of the year?
No, you can do it any time you want. It's effective immediately. So they're just going to adjust what they take out of your paycheck. The next paycheck is going to be affected by that. So it can be the first of the year, can be in the middle of the year, can be at the end of the year. But you're going to have to go back and go to employer and say, "I want to fill out a new W. I want to make adjustments to my W-4 form." So this is not written in stone. Everybody who gets a job, a salaried employee has to fill that out when they first get the job. That doesn't mean that you can never change it. This is not written in stone. It's not, "Oh goodness, I forgot to put this deduction there. Now I can never get that." No, you can change it anytime you want to. Just tell them, go to human resources, whoever is in charge. You say, "I want to fill out a new W-4 form that replaces the one that you have on file for me right now."
Another question.
Yeah.
I was told by my person that fills out income tax that I'm a single and I'm a one. He said something about maybe I ought to sign up for a zero. Is that?
Well, again, I'm not a tax attorney.
Right.
Now, and I'm not an income tax advisor. If you put in a zero, they're going to take more taxes out of you. Again, it's your objective. If you get a big refund check every year, or if you get a refund check every year, that means that more taxes are taken out than you should be paying.
Yeah. I
So-
had to pay this time, and I don't normally have to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you had to pay, then if you owed, then you're underpaid, obviously. So maybe you should make some changes so that doesn't happen again. Yes. Yeah. That's the easiest way, that your employer just takes out more taxes out of your paycheck. Any other questions? Yes.
What was the name of that coupon website?
Southern Savers. And there's a lot of others. That's just the one I use, and I found it to be very, very helpful. But there are others. And there's a column in the Birmingham News, I think once a week. I don't know what they call it, the coupon lady or something, or bargain lady. What's that? Oh, okay. She gives you some advice on where the sales are and things like that. But you can save significant amounts of money, and it's really, the Publix things comes out Wednesdays. She actually already has it on Tuesday nights. So I don't know exactly what kind of secret channel she has to get all the Publix sales the day before. But she also will tell you what the 1 cent item is, so you know if it's worth it or not. And all these kind of things, and it makes sense. You can save a lot of money that way. It's just it's a matter of actually doing it, because it does take some time. But they also print out the list for you, by the way. You don't even have to. You can print out the list with everything.
If you're trying to establish a budget, how far back would you go? Would you go back from the previous year into a full year of what you spent for the past year to get what your average would be, monthly average? Or how far back? I mean, because 1 month, I know with like our insurance, it's a quarterly insurance, it's
Yeah.
not a monthly insurance.
Yeah.
So as to, how to set up a budget, that's where we tend to have months where there's a significantly larger amount of money paid out.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem there is you have to, if it's something like that where the amounts actually vary over time, you want to go back about a year at least. Yes, so you get some average. Now, you also need to be aware when you put that average number in there that that's not accurate. Because you're not actually going to hit that average. It's going to be either above or below what you put in your budget. So you need to leave yourself some room. So you cannot end up with, you cannot come out zero in your budget and say, okay, I'm all set. When you have items in there that still can vary to a certain degree, and they will vary, and you just look at what the average is here compared to what's the top, what is the max and what's the min over the 12 months, so you know how much it varies above and below the average, so that you just have some idea how much you could be above or below budget in any given month. Yes.
If you have a quarterly payment, she was talking about the insurance payment, but you want to budget for it monthly. Is there a good way to keep track of the money that you're holding before you pay it?
Well, one thing, obviously what you want to do in your budget, you just divide it by 3, so you make it a monthly budget item. One of the things that always helps me, I have a whole bunch of different accounts. Well, not a whole bunch, but I have like 2 or 3 of them where I can just shift the money from one to the other. So if I know this is, I have a quarterly payment, let's say it's $100 a budget, I can move that into this account and it just stays there. And when I need it, because otherwise you can keep it in your one account, you just don't want to look at it and say, oh, I got an extra $100. So that depends on how you operate. To me, if I have it out there, if I move it to a different account, and if you open an account with a bank, if you have 1 or 2 or 3, it doesn't make a difference. It's just a matter of keeping track of all of it. And they let you online, they let you move the money back and forth, and it moves within a second. So that's how I do it. That's if you just keep track of it in different accounts. Yes.
I wanted to make a suggestion about that. I do that, but what I do is I accrue it in my checking account, and every month I just take out the amount that I need to accrue, like my car insurance or my house taxes, and so that money comes out. It comes out of my accounting and my checkbook, but it stays in my bank. It stays in the bank until I get ready to pay it, and then when I pay it, I've got the money there. But it's not showing up on my in my checkbook. It's like I've already spent it, but it's still there until I need it.
Yes.
In determining your net worth and figuring out your assets, what's the time frame for the assets? You said Social Security, you figure out for example, you would figure out your life expectancy and multiply the yearly amount by that.
Well, a statement of net worth is a snapshot. So if you do it, let's say on Sunday, it's based on what you think the value of all your belongings is on Sunday. And then, you can do it again a year later and see, okay, or you can do it every 6 months. And it's a snapshot. It's like your budget is a moving thing. Your balance sheet or your statement of net worth is a snapshot. What I think is the value, because these values will change. The value of your home and the value of your car and all of these things will change over time. So you just say, okay, this is what I'm worth today. Now let me look 6 months from now. Now what does my net worth look like? And then 6 months from now, what does it look like? So it's just as of that day what your net worth is.
Okay, so how do you figure the say your Social Security payment is $20,000 a year? How do you figure that?
Well, if I get $20,000 a year, then you have to kind of figure out how long do I think I'm going to live. So if I live another 40 years, then and I get $20,000 a year, then I can budget $800,000. I can put $800,000 as a Social Security asset. That's the value of that asset. Now, the first time you get one of those payments, it goes down from $800,000 to $780,000, and so on and so forth. Yes.
What are some of the, you talked about of investments and what do you consider a safe? What's just a quick 2 or 3 safe investments that you consider?
Well, it's the safest investments if you're not looking for a lot of interest are, if you want to go to your local bank, is a certificate of deposit. If it's more of a short term, like 6 months or a year or 2 years, because they're insured up to $250,000. So if something were to happen to the bank, that money is insured up to that amount. Treasury securities are safe investments. The Treasury has never defaulted so far on their payments. They're considered safe investments. You put your money in a savings account, which is not particularly efficient and generates a high return, but it's a safe investment because they're also insured. So any investment that is insured by the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, if you do not exceed the $250,000, is a safe investment. Now you can shop around and think of which bank is going to give me the highest interest rate. The interest rate normally indicates on how desperate the bank is in terms of needing to get your money. The more interest they pay you, the more desperate they are. But that doesn't mean that they're going to go under. Now that's the one thing, because this thing is insured. At the worst case scenario, you're not going to get the interest that you thought you would get if anything ever happens to the bank. But when you hear about these banks, that you hear about this bank closes, that bank closes, nobody actually ever lost anything in that. What they all do, they're just selling the bank to another bank. And all that happens is that your CD is not with Bank A anymore, now it's with Bank B, but you're still on the same terms and conditions. So nothing actually changes for the depositor. A lot of things change for the bank, but for the depositor, nothing ever happens. So those will be safe investments where you don't have to lose any sleep over. Or savings bonds is another one, U.S. savings bonds. But again, they don't, because they're safe, not a lot of return. There's a trade-off. Yes?
To track your daily spending, do you have some website or some prototype for like this budget that you've got here? Do you have an app for an iPhone?
I do not. As far as the daily spending, it's really more of an exercise that gets you to the budget. So in other words, you want to look at, I have this, this is what I've spent on this every day, this is what I spent on that, and then I say, okay, that means on groceries I'm spending this amount of money per month. So it helps you then to create your budget. It's kind of like the first step towards the exercise. You just keep a list.
And I was going to say, I'll do a little bit of research, and if I find some apps that look reputable, I'll stick them by you, and we'll look at them and put them out on the website. So we can definitely find some.
And that website where that spreadsheet is coming from, that is attached to your handout, that is a very good website. It's a reputable website. They have all kinds of different spreadsheets. I think the website is vortex.com. Yes, and that's a very reputable website. They have and these are safe applications. In other words, there's no virus that you're going to download or anything like that. So it's a safe place, and they have all kinds of different templates. I think it's Vortex. It should say it on there. Yeah, what the name of the company. It's the very last page. The spreadsheet printout that's attached to the handout. It says on there who's the issuer of that, or the company that made up. And they do have products also that cost money, that give you a lot more options, but these are all the free ones, and they're very helpful. Yes?
Download this, and it's an Excel spreadsheet.
Yes.
You don't have Excel on your computer, are you still manipulating it?
No, if you do not have Excel on your computer, you won't be able to download this particular one. There are others that are website-based, and there's a link that maybe Katie can put on to CNN Money, for example. They have a website, but it's more difficult to keep track with that. What you then might want to buy is a personal finance software, in particular Quicken. Yes. Yeah, in Quicken you can do that too. They allow you to track you and create a budget in there. You can do that in there. Yeah, so you can do it in there if you have that. And I highly recommend for everybody to have some sort of personal finance software, something where you can track your spending, where you can keep track of also your account balances and all of that, and so you know exactly how much money you have at all times. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you check boxes. Yes?
I just recently went back to work, and I wanted to know, I filled out the W-4 at work. Do I have to wait until I do my taxes to find out if I have, have the right deductions? Or is there any way to find out beforehand?
You could go to the IRS website. You could estimate how much taxes you're going to owe, and also how much taxes you would have to pay. And then you see, based on what you actually pay monthly taxes, you calculate it out for years. Okay, I'm going to pay too much, I'm going to little. So there are resources on the web, the IRS tax software. Just any general tax software will allow you to forecast your tax liability, and then you can figure out, am I going to overpay or not, or what kind of deductions. They will tell you if you have a tax software, if you used the tax software in the past, and you can just adjust to, okay, this is my income now, this is how much tax I pay. They will tell you what your W-4 form should look like, what kind of deductions you should take. Like the TurboTax or something like that will help you with that. Any other questions? All right, well then thank you very much for coming. And I hope I did not scare you away, so I hope to see you all again for our next one, first Thursday in November, when we're going to talk about banks.